All right, we're good. Welcome to the City Council meeting for Tuesday, June 18th, 2019. We are in closed session. The time is 5 p.m. May I have roll call, please?
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Here.
Mayor Martinez?
Here. Do we have any requests to speak?
I have no requests.
Okay. City Attorney, would you read the items for discussion today?
Yes, the council will be meeting in closed session. Item number 2, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6, city designated representative, city manager Todd Partnor as designee regarding the SEIU. Number 3, we will not be discussing number 3 this evening. Number 4 will be conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, claim Alfonso Hatcher. That's it.
Okay. And with that, we'll adjourn to closed session. Okay, we have returned from closed session. Mr. Pinckney, would you like to report out, please?
Yes, the council met in closed session. Item number 2, conference with labor negotiator pursuant to Government Code, Section 54957.6, city designated representative, city manager Todd Parton or his designee. Kerry Mendoza also attended the closed session on this item. It was regarding the SEIU. There was no reportable action taken. Item 3 was not discussed in closed session. Item number 4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D2, claim of Alfonso Hatcher. There was no reportable action taken in closed session. That's a report out.
Thank you, Mr. Pinckney. And with that, we will continue to regular session. I'll call to order at 6:03 PM. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White.
Here.
Councilmember Lara.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. And with that, we will continue. Actions on any requests for excused absence? Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember Lara, would you lead us, please?
Please join me in the salute to the greatest flag in the world. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Lara. Approval, adjustments to the agenda. Any requests? Any requests from the public? Conflict of interest disclosure? Okay, seeing none, we have no announcements or recognitions on the agenda today. That leads us to the public comment period. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing time to another person. State law prohibits the council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. Do we have speakers?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I will open at 6:05 PM.
Jeff Chambers?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here to make you aware of a couple of awards that we received a couple weeks ago at the Pacific Coast Builders Conference up in San Francisco. It's kind of funny. We came here in October of 2017 to get our Beacon project approved at the Planning Commission, and we received a 3-vote, 3 yeas and 1 no. And the person who voted no didn't like our platted siding on our Model 1. And that particular building won the National Home of the Year award. It was recognized out of applications from throughout the whole country, and it was selected both for its architectural style as well as the fact that the people that were making the final determination thought that they couldn't believe the price point of that particular home and where it was in Southern California. And so that coupled with the architecture, it received the National Home of the Year. So I thought that was great. You're going to see some additional advertising that we're going to be doing in recognition on it, but it's a great honor to bring it to Beaumont, and I think it speaks a lot about what we're delivering in terms of product to the city. And the other award that we received was the National Senior Age Qualified for the new Altus project. And so it also was the top award winner for 2018 throughout the country. So we brought 2 really spectacular achievements to the city of Beaumont, and I wanted to make you aware of that, and you'll see more of it in the coming weeks. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that comment.
Which development was the first house in?
It's in Sundance. It's the Beacon Model Homes.
Okay.
It's a 3,000-foot home, and it won best of class in the 3,000 to 4,000 foot range.
Jeff, on Altus, was it a particular home or was it the development
The
itself?
overall community
Okay.
with the clubhouse and the models and what was the whole layout of the development.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jeff, I'd like to congratulate you. I saw that on the paper, 2 weeks ago on that, and I'm so proud seeing that you guys got the national award on that. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, on the beacon. Thank you.
Next speaker.
No other speakers.
Okay, with that, we'll close at 6:07 PM. Brings us to our consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here at the end of the action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be done by title only. Do we have any request to pull the consent item from council? Do we have any public comment? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Or your question?
Mayor, I'll be abstaining from item 3 on the consent calendar since I was not here.
Okay.
Mayor, I move to approve the items on the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. Okay, with that, we will go to public hearings. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions, again, to be read by title only. Item 7, the consideration of a resolution establishing a solid waste self-haul permit fee and fines and penalties for the violation of the city's solid waste management ordinance.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Hold on one second. On item number 6 and 7, I'm going to recuse myself because it affects a company named Waste Management, and one of the attorneys in my firm has done work for Waste Management.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pink. 7.
Okay, good evening. This item is in relation to the second reading of the ordinance you just passed as part of your consent agenda. This is a resolution that approves the self-haul permit fee that's associated with the waste collection and our contract with Waste Management. As part of the legislature, we have to allow the resident to self-haul, but we can set an according fee with that. As part of setting the fee, we've estimated that it will roughly take staff about 10 hours to review the permit. As part of the permit, we have to do a vehicle inspection. We have to collect their haul tickets in order to make sure that the resident stays in compliance with the state legislature on waste collection and recycling. In addition to that, this particular resolution also accounts for fines associated with your waste collection, which is the ordinance that you just passed. Happy to answer any questions. If Eric Bell and his firm, Chad, who was here last time, actually wrote this up for us, and we just gave him the information to put in it, such as the fully burdened cost. So we did 10 hours times basically about $100 per hour, which was the fully burdened average cost from me down to the new solid waste manager that we will collect, or that we will hire. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Again, we recommend that you hold a public hearing and consider this resolution.
Okay, thank you. I will open the public hearing then at 6:11 PM. Do we have speakers?
I have no requests.
Okay, then we can close at 6:11 PM. And questions, discussion from council? Okay, I'm seeing none. I'll just entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to approve, waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution establishing a solid waste self-haul permit fee and fines and penalties for the violation of the city's solid waste management ordinance.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. With that, we will move to action items. Again, approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. We are on action item number 8, the approval of acquisition agreement by City of Beaumont and approval by the Community Facilities Districts 2016-2 Sundance of the issuance of its special tax bond series 2019. Got him off guard.
okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So this is the formation of CFD number 2016-2 that we're contemplating. For that, we've got the acquisition agreement that we need to approve. The acquisition agreement does provide for a continuation of the various projects and elements that are qualifying for reimbursement through the CFD program. So y'all first saw those as part of the acquisition agreement and the documents that we put together when we did the final financing for Improvement Area 8E. So we do have our team that's here to present this item to you tonight. So I think we are turning this over to Doug Anderson with Urban Futures here to get us moving. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Again, I'm Doug Anderson with Urban Futures. Tonight, we also have representatives from our team, from Webb, and from Stradling, Yoka, Carlson, and Routh, and our underwriter, Raymond James, on this transaction. We have a presentation we're going to go through. Tonight, we're going to talk about the development summary, bond transaction summary, some SEC compliance items. We'll go over the acquisition agreement, go over the bond issuance in detail, and talk about the financing schedule. As far as the development summary, major infrastructure, including sewer, storm drains, utilities, and arterial roads to be installed by the developer are completed. Permits issued as of March 1st, 2019, there are 490 permits issued, and those represent the parcels that will be assessed for fiscal year 1920. As of June 1st, 2019, an additional 33 permits have been issued. As far as the ownership status, as of May 1st, 2019, of the 527 parcels, 444 are already individually owned, 18 are completed and unsold, 38 are under construction, and there are 27 unfinished lots. As far as the bond transaction, we have a not-to-exceed debt capacity is actually $1.5 million lower, $12.5 million versus $14 million, than what was originally authorized in the formation documents. The proposed special tax bonds, Series 2019, are expected to be issued in a par amount of approximately $10.5 million, with a final maturity of 2049. At build-out, the estimated average annual special tax attributable to each parcel will be approximately $1,228. The estimated effective tax rate at the time of final pricing will not exceed 2.05%, which is consistent with the settlement agreement with Party, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. No fees are being reimbursed. The assigned special tax rate does not include a 2% escalator, so the bond debt service is a level debt service, does not increase. The cost of issuance fees are actually a little bit less than the prior transactions, and we'll go over that in more detail. At this point, I'm going to have Reed Glyer from Stradling come up and talk about some of the legal considerations.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Reed Glyer from Stradling. This isn't anything that the council hasn't seen before. You have before you tonight two resolutions, a resolution of the city approving the acquisition agreement, a resolution of the CFD approving the acquisition agreement, the POS, a bond indenture, continued disclosure certificate, and a bond purchase agreement. These are very similar to documents that have come before the council before. The preliminary official statement is a very long document that discloses, of course, material information about the district, the bonds, and any concerns investors may have with their investment. And the council should know that in drafting the preliminary official statement, all steps were taken in compliance with the disclosure obligations required by the SEC and since then by city staff. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Just to say, one thing to clarify is with this particular CFD, pursuant to the settlement agreement, impact fees are eligible for reimbursement. And so,
What? Sorry, I didn't.
I was going to say, with this CFD, pursuant to the settlement agreement, development impact fees are subject for reimbursement through this one. Yeah.
That's right. And so if you look at the form acquisition agreement in the packet, you'll see there's a facilities list on Exhibit C that sets forth all the various improvements that are being financed. Those are improvements that were either constructed with development impact fees paid to date, or that will be constructed with development impact fees paid to date by Pardee. And because the expenditure can be tied to capital facilities, they're an eligible expense for CFD bond proceeds. So that's a result of the settlement agreement with Pardee to begin with. Now I'm going to introduce Leslie Bloom, who's the underwriter, Raymond James, to talk about the underwriting component.
Good evening, Mayor Martinez and council members. My name is Leslie Bloom. I'm with Raymond James, and it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight. I'd like to go through some of the details of the financing, including the sources and uses of funds and the debt service profile. First, I'll start with the sources and uses of funds on the left-hand side. We expect to issue approximately $10.57 million in bonds, and in the current market, we expect to generate some original issue premium. This results in project funds of approximately $10.39 million, which will be used to reimburse the developer. We will issue a debt service reserve fund in the amount of approximately $639,525, and we will also be funding cost of issuance associated with the financing, which I'll detail in some of the further slides. Below the sources and uses of funds, we have a table that includes the bond summary statistics. These are estimates based on the current market. In the current market, we estimate the true interest cost of your bonds to be around 3.87% with an all-in TIC of just under 4%. This results in total debt service of approximately $19.17 million, with maximum annual debt service of $639,525, and average annual debt service of $636,981. On the right side, we've included a debt service profile, which shows the principal amortized over 30 years and level debt service throughout. On the next slide, we compare the cost of issuance of this transaction to the most recent transaction, which was completed for CFD 2016-1 Fairway Canyon. The cost for this financing is about $250,000, which as a percent of the par value is around 2.37%. When compared to the last financing, the total cost of issuance were just over $300,000, and a percent of par was 3.41%. The difference is primarily due to underwriter's discount, and then the difference in the par size with the last financing being a little bit smaller, resulting in a percentage that's slightly higher. On the next slide here, we've estimated, included the detail, of the cost of issuance. So we show the underwriter's discount here of approximately $80,000, which is about $7.60 on a per bond basis. And we've also included the detail for the other consultants on the financing. On this next page, we have included the debt service profile in a graph form. This shows the annual debt service, breaking out the components for the principal and interest. And again, it demonstrates that it's a level debt service over 30 years. There's no special tax escalator, and it's fixed rate financing. On the final page, we have included an anticipated schedule. This includes tonight's council meeting. We expect to print and distribute the offering document the week of July 1st. and we are scheduled to price the bonds the following week, the week of July 8th, with a closing a couple weeks later, the week of July 22nd. And that concludes our presentation.
At your places, you'll see page 30. It's a red line page from the preliminary offering statement. And what you'll see with that is some updates to the fee calculations that Ms. Sheppy ran for us. And it's been updated to really reflect what the actual sales were per those homes. So you'll see that the average home value originally reported through the appraisal report was 301,508. When you look at actual sales, it's really 304,611. So when you go back through and you rerun your calculations and you look at the contemplated debt issuance, it really yields an average effective tax rate of 2.05%, which is consistent with the rate that was established when you negotiated the settlement agreement. And if you remember, the settlement agreement allowed for that rate to go slightly above 2% because the trade-off was that there were additional assessments that were being collected for public safety primarily to begin to address that need within the community. So on the services side within the CFD, you've got the services for facilities and maintenance as well as for public safety. Yes, thank you. And Mr. Faintney did remind me that we also were able to eliminate the escalator as part of that negotiation with us.
This page has been uploaded to the portal for public, the addendum.
It has not yet.
It will.
Just finished that up this evening for the
Okay.
council meeting. Yeah. So on the acquisition agreement, the recommendation there would be contingent upon 2 additional conditions. One is that we add a provision that where Pardee is actually implementing or constructing any of these capital facilities for reimbursement, that there would need to be a competitive bidding process for that. It doesn't mean necessarily that it's the city's mandated processes, but there does need to be a process that goes through. In addition to that, Exhibit C on the acquisition agreement, there's just one minor change to that. I think that's on page 143 of your packet. And if you look at item 7, Pennsylvania Avenue, 2nd Street, where it says the constructing party is city, we probably need to say city/party, because there's right-of-way, a party may actually construct or cause those roadway, part of those roadway improvements to be constructed. What was contemplated in that portion was the actual widening for Pennsylvania from 6th Street down to 1st Street, and then you've got the 2nd Street extension that ties into it. In addition to that, you've got the new rail crossing that need to be constructed as part of that project. So that's what that portion reflects. So as we've talked about the actual deployment of those projects, there's a little bit of flexibility that we would need with regard to the responsible parties for the construction of those improvements.
You have the breakdown between the city and Pardee for the figures?
We don't yet. We know that these are the values that we've got established for those improvements, and then it'll just be dependent upon what party actually bids and constructs versus what the city would need. So what would happen under this construct for these future projects is the city would actually request the payment or advance of certain amounts of cash, of which would then be remitted to the city. And then those would be subject for reimbursement through the acquisition agreement, so through bond proceeds.
Okay. All right, so let's open it up for public comment. So do we have public comment?
No requests.
Okay, so no request for public comment. Open and close 6:26 p.m. So we'll open it up to council for questions and comments.
I just got
Laura?
2 quick ones.
All right.
I'm not sure who they're for. First one is, just want to confirm again that all the proper steps were taken to notify SEC and everything is good with what we've done and processed.
Good question and a good concern, but yes, all the steps were taken. The city has a very lengthy but good disclosure, set of disclosure procedures that are followed before and during each bond issuance. And I actually went through it last week to make sure that each and every step was being taken, and it has been taken so far.
Okay, perfect. And then one last question, because I know it'll come up, and I'm not sure who will answer this, but in the report, it indicates that we have 444 individually owned parcels. And why aren't they allowed to vote for this type of a CFD?
Well, so the vote that was undertaken was to approve the rate and method of apportionment, which essentially governs how the special tax gets levied.
Right.
And that vote takes place at the beginning of the CFD process. The CFD was formed in 2016, and at that time there was actually only one landowner in the CFD, and that was Pardee. Pardee was the only landowner. As the only landowner, they were the only voter. They approved the RMA. And then anyone who bought land in the district after that point in time bought their house subject to the RMA that was previously approved.
And they were made aware of that when they made the purchase?
It's been on title, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Mr. White?
Yeah. So price, so this is going to be $1,200 a year, basically, right? $100 a month? And that covers the public safety? That's part of the public safety portion?
No, that's just going to be the facilities portion.
So how much is the public safety portion?
Public safety portion, if I remember right, it's going to run right around $340.
A year?
Yes.
Okay, and what, maybe?
So that's the services. Public safety is going to run $450 a year, roughly. And then there's an escalator to these services and the public safety side.
Okay, that was the 5%?
Yes.
Okay.
That's right.
And this might be a question for Mr. Chambers, but the price range of the homes, what are these homes selling for? Does anyone know? Just a ballpark.
It's from the low 300s to the low 400s.
Okay. Well, I could really lower my So then I have a question in the attachments. There's a attachment G that got my attention because in the table of contents on there, it talks about Appendix I and H and G, but when I go through the attachment of attachment G, the last appendix I'm finding is F. Is that because I was curious about, what I was looking for was the disclosures. The thing that we've had problems with the SEC is I want to make sure that we're fully disclosing it. And it talks about here on Appendix I, grand jury request for documents. But like I said, when I go through this, the last appendix I think I'm seeing is F.
Yeah, and you're not missing anything, by the way.
Okay.
So there is discussion about each of those appendices in the body of the front part of the official statement.
Okay.
And then what happens is before this document goes out to the market, those appendices get attached. So what you're approving tonight is the form of these documents, including the preliminary official statement.
Okay.
And there is about, and at this point in time, there looks like there's a 2-week period of time between tonight and when we look to probably post that document, which means that's the point at which it goes out to market, and that's the point at which those appendices will be attached. But it will be the same ones that the city has used in its last several official statements. So I don't think it's going to be anything new to the market, for example.
Well, it might be new. I know we went back and we disclosed when the issue with the grand jury showed up. But I don't know that I have seen, other than that, at that time, the disclosures that we did to go back and redo it. So that was my question. Now, you had mentioned that in this document G that it talks about those, it describes those appendices?
That's right. So if each one of them has their own discussion. If you go to the table of contents and you look at, for example, at page 46,
Okay.
you'll see there's a discussion of the state controller investigation, the grand jury request for documents. Page 45 has a discussion of state and federal investigations. And so really what the appendices are is the kind of supporting information behind that disclosure.
Okay, that is exactly what I was looking for. I just probably, I went straight looking for the appendices. That's why I didn't see that. So, okay, that's what I needed to know.
Good.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Just for clarification, that 2.05% is the compounded rate, assuming all the combined obligations, special tax obligations for properties within the CFD.
And that 2.05 is higher than what we want to do, but it's higher than our policy, but it was part of the settlement agreement with Pardee.
Correct.
Okay.
Are you good, Councilman?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Mr. Lantos, Ms. Carroll? You want to go? Okay.
Again, the update to the table 5 that we were handed for page 30, that is going to be corrected in the final document. And you mentioned that, and then I say this because the documents always look more credible when they're perfect. So there is a note on Article, I think it's 4 or 5, that says that the bookmark's not defined. So somebody will fix that, right, before that goes public. All right. Other than that, the fact that Councilmember White clarified that it's above our 2% that we try to keep as a threshold, but that this is an individual set of circumstances. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Councilor Mr. Santos?
On my side is the financing. I'm glad that you gave us this table and everything, because I was reviewing this morning and this afternoon, and especially on the good faith estimates, and it doesn't show who's really the the trustees, and then it has a $1,800 every month that will be charged in there, and I like to see who's that. I mean, I was not
The
really-
trustee on this financing is Wilmington Trust.
Yeah.
And they have delivery date costs, which I believe are $4,500, and then they have an annual fee of $18.
Yeah, I'm happy about that. I mean, seeing that and everything in there. And then the only thing is, hopefully, on the good faith estimate, that would be nice, who's the third parties, who's involved on those fees. That would be nice to see, and who are those, third parties, because it says in here only third parties.
The consultant fees?
Yeah,
The-
whoever, I mean,
Right, so the consultant fees in the presentation, let me go back and, if I'm understanding correctly. So here we've detailed the individuals or the roles of each of those. So the underwriter is Raymond James, that's my firm. Disclosure counsel and bond counsel are both Stradling, Yaka, Carlson, and Roth. Financial advisor is Urban Futures. The trustee is Wilmington Trust. The special tax consultant is Webb. The printer is to be determined. Avia. And then the appraiser is Integra.
That's good, thank you, that's for the public. And then also, on the, I didn't know that you will do I thought a full amortization of the, 10.5 million. And there's a balloon showing on the charts of 600,000, is that correct?
Right, so the annual debt service, the average annual debt service is around 636,000.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Very good, thank you. That's
Yes.
all I'd like to clarify.
Thank you. And as part of our full disclosure, the facilities list here is Exhibit C. It's the one that lists everything that we had asked to be fully disclosed. Okay. Any further discussion and questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont authorizing the execution and delivery of an acquisition agreement relating to the City of Beaumont Community Facilities District Number 2016-2, Sundance, of the City of Beaumont, and approving certain other actions in connection therewith, and waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont acting as the legislative body of the City of Beaumont Community Facilities District Number 2016-2 Sundance, authorizing the issuance of its 2019 special tax bonds in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $12,500,000, and approving certain documents and taking certain other actions in connection therewith.
I'll second that.
A point of information, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
You said 12,500,000, it should be 12,500,000, I believe, if the figure is correct.
Are you
On
correct?
The second paragraph.
Yeah, the sentence says $12,500,000,
And then
the
it's-
amount is
Oh.
12.5.
Correct.
Thank you for clarifying. So it'll be 1,200.
I'll amend my motion as $12,500,000. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. I just want to make sure Mr. Pinckney's looking it over. Is that sufficient, Mr. Pinckney, for clarification? Okay, very well. All right, then we'll move to action item number 9, the approval of the memorandum of understanding, MOU, between the City of Beaumont and the Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District, BCVWD, regarding recycled water.
Mayor, Council, we have for you tonight a final draft of the MOU with the Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District. So we've had a 2x2 series of meetings going, I don't know, for about the past 22 years. or 6 months, something like
Yes.
that.
Give or take a few.
Plus or minus. But this does reflect really the ultimate terms that City Council had agreed to in its last joint meeting with the Cherry Valley Board. The board did consider this at its meeting last week, and they did approve this as presented here within your document tonight. Recommendation from staff would be to go ahead and approve this MOU. This MOU will be the basis for us to negotiate a final contract. That final contract would really need to really go into effect if at the later of 18 months or at such time that we actually bring our wastewater system improvements online and they're functioning, we can actually deliver that recycled water. So we have about 18 months or so to finalize our final term of negotiations. So again, the request tonight would be to approve the MOU and to authorize staff to go ahead and initiate the final negotiations for a contract.
Thank you. Do we have public comment on item number 9?
No requests.
Okay. Council discussion? Questions? Member 2x2, any questions, comments?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay. Go ahead, Mr. White.
Seeing if anyone else wanted to go.
No.
So the final negotiation process has to be completed within, you said, the later of 18 months or when the water is available. So what is the timeline on that? Do you start negotiating right away? Do you wait a few months, or what's the process on that?
Our plan, and talking with Mr. Jaggers, would be really to start conversations here right away. So start to kind of hammer through some of those details and to try to present that back. And we're presuming that we would bring the 2x2 back together. So we get a draft document, bring the 2x2 together to begin looking at those final details when y'all are ready to move forward on it.
That was the only question I had.
Okay. Anyone else? I just want to thank the Beaumont Cherry Valley Water Department and the Board of Directors and Director Jaggers. It's a momentous occasion, and we're moving forward and getting that much closer to realizing recycled water for the area. So I'm very excited. Okay, if not, I'll have a motion. I'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Beaumont and the Beaumont Cherry Valley Water District regarding recycled water as presented, and to authorize the city manager to initiate negotiations on a final contract.
Also second.
Councilmember White.
Yes.
Councilmember Lara.
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. And with that, item number 10, the interagency service agreement between the City of Banning and the City of Beaumont to provide coordinated transit services.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The item that you have before you tonight has been discussed previously at City Council meetings during the short-range transit plan. This is an interagency agreement between the cities of Banning and Beaumont. It is very similar to the interagency agreements that you all have approved with RTA, Omnitrans, and Victor Valley Transit Authority.
Thanks, sir.
On June 4th, you formally adopted the short-range transit plan, which, as part of that plan, removed the Route 2 completely out of the city of Banning and proposed that the Route 2 only stop at the hospital within the city limits. Last week, City Manager Parton, Assistant City Manager Day, and I met with City Manager Doug Schultz and their Public Works Director Art Vela, and we discussed this agreement. We made minor modifications to the template that I had proposed. Since that time, our city attorney has reviewed those modifications. We emailed those changes to the City of Banning. I did receive word back last night with some very minor changes from the City of Banning, which our city attorney, Mr. Pinckney, has reviewed and approved. The document that you have before you that was just handed out is that clean copy of it. There were very minor changes made, nothing significant. Some of the highlights in this new agreement: each city will implement boarding restrictions within respective service areas where duplication of service or potential revenue loss may occur. Each agency will accept transfer fare media, basically a transfer ticket, from the other agency at 2 key points only. One is Walmart and the other is the hospital. This will allow passengers from either city to get to their final destination without having to pay twice. Each party will formally inform each other of future plans and schedule changes no later than 30 days before the schedule changes are to be implemented. Neither party may operate duplicating services in the other party's jurisdiction without written approval of the other party's elected body. Each party will operate in accordance with the Transportation Development Act. The term of the agreement is for 1 year. Execution hopefully is July 1st, or when both parties sign, whichever is the latter. And then the 2 city staff members have agreed to meet sometime before December 15th to discuss the following year's short-range transit plan so that we can communicate more effectively and talk about plans within our jurisdiction and how those may or may not affect our neighboring cities. Recommendation is to approve the interagency service agreement between the City of Beaumont and the City of Banning and authorize the city manager to execute on behalf. And if you'd like, I have both of the marked up copies, and I can answer any specific questions about exactly what was changed.
Thank you, Ms. Gibbs. Public comment?
No requests.
Okay, I'll take questions from council. I've got a couple while everyone's looking. So you're going to meet in December, of course, to be prudent for the following year. I'm assuming you'll probably end up meeting sooner than that, probably right after July to see how everything's going?
I plan to meet with Mr. Bella at least once a month.
Okay, so good, so the communication's planned then. And I do like how the claims are separated by entity on that, so appreciate that. Any questions for Mr. Laura? No?
Just want to compliment you on the efforts. I think this is great. I'd like to thank the city of Banning also for their willingness to come to the table and meet to agree to this. But I do appreciate your efforts on that. Thank you.
Carol?
I have two questions, and I'm really glad that this has finally come to fruition, that we have this MOU. They're probably pretty basic questions, but one of them where neither party will board passengers at any other bus stop within the other party's jurisdiction. It sounds very reasonable, but I'm trying to think of how that would work. So if somebody wants to get on the bus and say that they're going to a location that is not within this agreement, we tell them that they can't do that? Or explain this to me a little bit.
So there's several bus stops along the Highland Springs corridor. Those are the bus stops that we're talking about. So you have southbound, you have Burger King, and you have the Best Buy shopping center. Northbound, you have the Albertsons shopping center, and you have the Chevron there. This conceptually makes both of us, both cities, honor one stop in each city, not unlike what RTA does when they come to Beaumont.
Okay.
RTA passes a few different bus stops when they come into Beaumont. They only stop at one stop in Beaumont, and then one stop in Banning. So it's a very similar arrangement to what we have right now with RTA.
That's a good way to put it. Thank you. And then I'm trying to read through this as quickly as I can. So if there's an outage of service, how are we going to handle that? And, you know, what are we doing when people complain about the bus is late, or the bus didn't come, or sped by me, or whatever?
If it's for the other agency, we pass those along to the other agency.
We don't tell them to call the other agency, we funnel the information?
Generally, we take the information, we do give them the other agency's phone number, but then we follow up with a call or usually an email, it's faster. Our staff will type the information in as the person is talking, and that way they can just hit send. But we do give them the phone number to follow up with.
Okay, that's good. And within this is if Banning is down a bus, if they have mechanical problems or driver problems or whatever, I didn't read fast enough to know, is there something in here to have them notify us with enough time that we could maybe help?
That is not an issue that is addressed in this agreement because technically that's a violation of the law. We are a transit operator that receives local transportation fund money. We do not have the authority to just shut down routes. That is not an option. In essence, we're taking money and we're not giving the constituents the service.
Thank you. And then the last question is, we're doing this before we're finishing the COA, right?
Correct.
And do we expect the COA to have any implication on this MOU? Or is it generic enough where we don't think that's going to happen?
The COA is going to address the regional transportation issues. This agreement is only a one-year agreement, and it's purposely drafted that way so that you all have the ability next winter, spring, to talk about whether or not to extend this for another year or terminate the agreement.
Okay. And I think it's a big positive step for both cities. So I commend the staff here and also the staff of Banning for doing this.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Sanchez.
No, I'm okay. I mean, I really appreciate this, all details and everything in here, and I really appreciate your hard work and also the city of Banning. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Wood.
Yeah, you said this last night changes by written agreement. That was by staff. They haven't taken to their council yet, or have they?
No, they have not.
Okay, and they're expected to take it next Monday?
The last email that I received, they anticipate taking it a week from tonight, June 25th.
Okay. And on those routes that we all share, I didn't see anything in here about pricing coordination. Is it in here that they can lower their price, we can raise ours, we can raise theirs, or is there any?
There is no article in there that addresses Fair Media because we are operating as our own entity, as is the city of Banning. It's not unlike RTA. RTA does a census of their passengers, and they do a fare matrix, and they set their fares accordingly. It would be unfair if we coordinated our fares based on our geographic region and Banning's geographic region. They're completely different.
So if I get on the bus southbound on Highland Springs and then get off at Walmart, it doesn't matter which bus I'm on, I'm going to be paying the same fare?
If you got on the bus southbound Highland Springs, you would be getting on a Beaumont bus.
Okay.
You would not be allowed to board a Banning bus until you get to Walmart.
Okay, so there are no Banning bus stops on the south side, southbound of Highland Springs?
Correct, and that's what this agreement does. Yeah.
And then you had made a comment in here about written notice by an elected body. I see on the back the written notice by both sides, but was there was it somewhere else? I couldn't.
Yes, let me find the language. And this was purposely written based on past history of receiving termination notices directly from staff without council action.
So I see on the back, the agreement shall be altered or otherwise modified except by written amendment executed by both parties, but I think you said that one side could cancel with written.
Actually, what it says is neither party may operate duplicating service. So that means that if there is a route established in one city, the other city couldn't duplicate that service. And we couldn't duplicate that service in the other party's jurisdiction, and in this case, it would be the city limits, without written approval of the other party's elected body.
Okay, is that in here? I didn't see that.
And the intent of that is the short-range transit plan. The short-range transit plan would require that change to be made, and staff will be meeting prior to the kickoff of the short-range transit plan timeframe, so that we would know ahead of time if there are plans, and then we could address them accordingly.
Is that in here, the written?
Yes. Article 9.
Article 9. Okay. And then the last question is, so currently we are both serving both sides of Highland Springs right now
Currently.
before this?
Yes.
Okay. So if one side does give 60 days written notice and severs or terminates the agreement, then we go back to what we're doing now?
I don't know that we would go back to what we're doing now, because the Route 2 that would be a significant increase in service for us, because we're reprogramming part of the Route 2 to another 120 bus. We would, if either party terminated the agreement with 60-day notice, we would have to come back to the table and talk about the future. Either a new agreement would need to be adopted by both councils, or a joint SRTP, joint operation. there's many options.
Knowing the history between our two cities and this subject for, as you said, it's been 20 years, maybe we need that in here, because I could see where I could cancel this right away and start picking up on both sides of the street. I'm not saying this city would do that.
But the ability to extend your service into another service provider's jurisdiction is governed by the TDA. And so there are certain notification processes you have to go through before you can start to run those services. And the other side has the opportunity to step up and provide those services in lieu of yours. And in no event, though, under the TDA, can another operator operate at the financial detriment of another operator?
Correct. And the last article in here says both cities must comply with the TDA. And so, Mr. Parton's correct. If that were to happen, we have remedies under the act that we can do, that we can follow.
Okay, I just go on notice, because I know what we're dealing with here.
I'm very hopeful that the communication going forward is going to be positive.
But I do want to, I want clarification on something Councilmember White brought up. Okay, so he gave an example, worst-case scenario, that we signed this and right away we pulled out of it immediately, and then could we work both sides of the street? And I get the detrimental to another, I get that. But isn't there, there's a distance that you can go into another area of, what is it, a half mile that you can go in? So you really could work both sides of the street until you.
Well, I don't know if it's that clear cut, because what it says is you can go within 3/4 miles into another jurisdiction of the routes that you're running as of the adoption of the TDA, which was 1972. And there really are no records that we found of any maps that were establishing those routes. So really, technically, I don't know that we had fixed routes being run, which would then undercut the ability of either one of us to be able to automatically operate within the jurisdiction of the other.
But I'm definitely going to the high ground on this, so I just wanted clarification on this point. Thank you.
One more follow-up. Have we rebranded all of our buses?
Not yet.
So when we are, they will look distinctly different from
Absolutely.
the other side's buses?
Absolutely.
Because we will.
The passtransit.com website will be shut down
Okay.
next week,
Good.
10 days. And once the short-range transit plan is formally adopted by the commission, which hasn't happened yet, then that's our green light to spend our capital money, which the rebranding is one of our capital projects.
Okay. That's all.
So there will be a little time of overlap during that we'll be running.
Correct, right. And we'll have to go out to bid, and it'll take some time to redo the buses, and they'll have to be done incrementally.
I do think the rebranding will help as a point of clarification, because if we give the example of only picking up at your stop the passengers from your city, if you have a Beaumont bus versus a Banning bus, that'll be a little clearer to people that might be trying to run for the bus.
Well, and part of the rebranding, you're exactly right, Councilmember Carroll, that we're going to put up new signs.
Yeah.
Right now, all the signs are the same, and so people stand under the Pass Transit sign. They don't care that it's Banning and Beaumont. They see Pass Transit on the bus, they want to get on that bus.
That's right, especially when it's hot or raining.
Yep.
Okay, with that, any other questions? We'll entertain a motion.
I will move to approve the interagency service agreement between the City of Beaumont and the City of Banning, and authorize the city manager to execute on behalf of the city.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Thank you.
With that, that brings us to item number 11. Item number 11. That's right. second amendment to the custodial services contract with the Executive Facility Services for custodial services at the Beaumont Police Department, the Police Annex Building, and Building H in the amount of $25,000, and a contingency of $20,000 for a total not to exceed contract in the amount of $150,000, and approve an extension of contract for one additional year for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
Thank you, Mayor and
Excuse
Council.
me, Mayor. If there's no objections, I'd like to move to approve this item.
Any objections from council?
Sorry, I know you want to give your presentation.
That's okay.
That's fine.
I'll
There's
second.
no heartache.
Okay, so you want me to read the whole thing? I move to approve a contract amendment with EFS for an additional 1 year effective July 1st, 2019, and approve the second amendment to agreement for services with independent contractor drafted by city attorney and authorize city manager to execute on behalf of the city, and authorize a purchase order for fiscal year 2019-2020 in an amount not to exceed $150,000 allocated to respective facilities, and authorize the city manager or his designee to negotiate and, if necessary, approve a third amendment to agreement for services with independent contractor on behalf of the city solely for the purpose of offsetting the mandated minimum wage increase in January 2020, not to exceed $20,000.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Lara,
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yep. Yes. Yep. Who does that? Yep. All right. For item number 12, sale of surplus animal control service vehicle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The staff report before you is in reference to the proposed sale of a surplus 2006 Ford E350 animal control van. The Beaumont Police Department has 3 vehicles configured for animal control services: 2 Ford F350 utility trucks and Unit 06-38, a 2006 Ford E350 van. Unit 06-38 has served the city and surrounding communities of Banning and Calamasa faithfully over the years, but has fulfilled its service life. Due to our reduction in services to those other cities, we no longer need a third animal control vehicle. Although Unit 06-38 is 13 years old, it has relatively low mileage and decent residual resale value. The Kelly Blue Book value ranges from a low of $4,737 to a high of $6,428. Coincidentally, the Ramona Humane Society, a nonprofit 501c3 organization and service provider to the city, is in need of an affordable animal control vehicle and requested to purchase Unit 06-38 for $6,000. The fiscal impact to the city is approximately $300 to remove the radio and computer equipment from the vehicle. The cost will be offset from the $6,000 in revenue to the general fund. The only recommendation before you tonight is approval of the sale of Unit 06-38 to the Ramona Humane Society for $6,000. And I'm available to answer any questions if you have any of me.
Thank you. Do we have public comment on the previous item number 11? Okay, do we have any for this current number 12? Okay, entertain a motion or ask questions. Mr. White?
So you indicate here that all we're doing is selling this, and you indicate that it's because we no longer need it. Does that mean that we will be shopping for a new one, or we are all good after this?
We still have 2 Ford F350 utility trucks that we are currently using for the 2 animal control officers.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to, to approve the sale of the ACO vehicle, Unit 06-38, to Ramona Humane Society for $6,000.
Second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Lara.
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos.
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Action item 13, the approval of the requisition for Paladine Inc.
Good evening. Approximately a year ago, The cost for polymer was estimated not to exceed $100,000. Attached the meeting notes from last year. We have coming to the end of this fiscal year, and it looks like we're going to need another $12,000 to $20,000 to close out the year. And that's what this item is about.
Okay, thank you. Public comment?
No requests.
Okay, council questions? I'll entertain a motion if not. Seeing none, I'll...
If there's no motion, a real quick
Oh,
question.
you do have...
Certainly.
Yeah, I was trying not to ask it, but I got it. So,
No, go
we
ahead.
approved a purchase order of 100,000. Did we just underestimate? Did something happen to make it go up to 25,000?
It's hard for me to know what last year's was based on and who calculated it, but I know since, we've been over there and taken over, we have been doing a lot of pressing, trying to balance the solids load with the nitrification process.
And when will we need to buy more polymer? When are you going to come to us for a new purchase order, probably of 125,000?
I'm hoping to have that for July 2nd.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry about that.
The other question, I had the same question, but have you seen a price increase for the polymer? Because it's either an under budget estimate or it's a price increase.
I could not locate the price per pound at the time of August last year, so I don't know if the city incurred a price increase from that time. Traditionally, they're pretty steady, but then, they do have things like fluctuations with fuel surcharges, and, everything gets a little more expensive every year.
One of the things you're going to see in the wastewater budget is we're just transitioning from contracting those services out to running all those in-house. So we're getting more acquainted with what these unit prices are and what these different line item elements are. So it's really more, we're learning more about the budget as we're transitioning into our in-house operations.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the requisition for Polydyne Inc. in the amount of $20,000.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we are on item number 14. Approve the First Amendment of the Professional Service Agreement for Plan Check and Public Works Inspection Services for NV5 Inc. in the amount not to exceed $296,400 for fiscal year 2018-19.
Council, this is an increase to a contract that you review annually with our plan check services, our inspection services, for public works items out in your subdivision. We have two contract agencies. One is NV5, the other one is ERSC. One of the reasons you're seeing an increase in the cost is as we went through the transition from public works directors, we actually loaded NV5 with a couple of extra items that were specific to moving some staff around. In addition to that, NV5 has got quite a few of the subdivisions out there, and trying to maintain consistency with our public works inspectors. If one is building out at a faster rate, you may see some of that. This does not go over our ultimate budget amount between the two. We're just taking some off of VRSC and sticking it over here on MV5s.
Very well. Right, public comment?
No requests.
Okay, council questions?
Mayor, if there are no questions, I'll make a motion to approve First Amendment of the Professional Service Agreement for Plan Check and Public Works Inspection Services to NV5 Inc. in an amount not to exceed $296,400 for fiscal year 2018-19.
Second.
Councilmember White? Councilmember Lara?
$296,400. That's two I've gotten wrong. I'm not doing anymore. Sorry.
Okay, Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro
Thank
Tem
you.
Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. With that, item number 15, Authorize third amendment to the professional services agreement for wastewater regulatory support services, NPDS, to G&G Environmental Consultants, Inc., of Riverside, California, in an amount not to exceed $146,292 for the fiscal year 2019-20.
Council, this is your environmental consultant. They run essentially 3 programs for us. So they run our stormwater inspections out in our subdivision for us. They run what's called your FOG program, which is your fats, oil, and greases that are discharged potentially into the wastewater system. So we monitor any of the potential businesses that could be adding to the load of the fats, oils, and greases. That is required by a part of our permit and part of our compliance. And then the third thing they do is they help us with the pretreatment program. And this is essential to your brine line connection and our ability to get into the Inland Empire brine line with OCSD. G&G has been with you for multiple years. They are a stabilizing force. OCSD likes to see them. SAPA is very comfortable with them, so it's very important that we move forward with this company based on doing pre-treatment. They do plan review for us as well as our quarterly inspections as part of our pre-treatment program. One of the things that I've set some program goals with G&G. One of the goals that we are doing is trying to get reimbursement through these programs. So as we're doing plan check, to make sure that we're getting reimbursed through plan check deposit fees. And then we'll probably in the future be coming back to you and setting pre-treatment fees with those industrial dischargers in order to recapture the time that we spend on those applications as well as in the quarterly inspections and then actually doing the quarterly sampling so that all of that's reimbursed to the city and the wastewater division is not out any funds based on that. With that said, we recommend that you move forward with approving this contract in this amount, and happy to answer any questions if you have those.
Thank you. Any public comment?
No.
Any questions from council?
Real quick.
Yes.
4 year, this is the 4th year, correct? So next year, on the 5th year,
So
the
here-
rules kick in, or they don't kick in till?
Well, you're within the time period that's permissible under your ordinance that you adopted. You can have a contract for up to 5 years, and then it's reviewed. It's just the idea was to submit it to the council annually so that you could do what's proposed tonight. And then if you wanted to extend beyond that 5-year period, if you decide that this is a relationship that you want to keep beyond that 5-year period, you can do that, but with a 4/5 vote. So you're in compliance with your ordinance.
Okay. I'm just wondering, we were doing this every year because pendulum had swung way the other way.
Right, at one
Going
time.
forward,
I'm sorry.
we could do this on every other, I mean, we're paying for an amendment to the contract every year?
The reason this started is because the city had a history of having contracts that were unreviewed and forgotten, and you had vendors that were taking advantage of the city, and the council wasn't on an annual basis reviewing those relationships. So this council decided that it wanted to review all the contracts annually, and that's what you're doing, and it's more of a housekeeping item. An alternative would be that you could put it on the consent calendar, and then if one is of concern to you when you review it, pull it, so that you don't have to go through these individually one by one. Otherwise, all the contracts generally come back to you for review.
But we are no longer first new contract going just 1 year, right? We're going like 2 years.
You can do up to 5 years, up to 5-year term, but it still gets reviewed annually.
We're typically doing a 3-year initial term with the ability to do the two 1-year extensions as part of the contract.
And I'm okay up except for that 5th year of putting it on the consent agenda for review. I'm comfortable with that, if the rest of the council.
The idea was that, you could do up to 5 years term, and that once a year, the contract would just come before you, so you'd see it.
We started putting anything over $40,000
Right.
on this discussion.
Right,
actually
right.
part of it. So other contracts, 40,000, we're less than 40,000, we can put on the consent.
Okay, no, I remember that now. Yeah, let's keep that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the amount of 146 is consistent with the prior contracts?
It is,
or
and those
less.
are split between two different funds. So
Right.
the general fund pays for a portion that is related to stormwater. Wastewater will pay for the fog as well as the pretreatment
But
program.
the number hasn't significantly increased?
It has not,
Okay.
no. And they typically, we usually don't get to the end of this contract. It's not a bill out. We do it as needed. It's an estimate for the amount for the year.
One thing that's important to note on this particular service is that as we're building our pretreatment programs and as we are getting into the brine line operation, G&G is a known entity, and they are a group that is respected by OCSD and by SAPA. And so one of the things that was very important to OCSD when we were talking about permission to get into the line was who and how are we implementing pretreatment and going to implement pretreatment. And when we discussed the fact that we have G&G on board, that was a very important factor to them. So that is very critical for us in contemplating the recommendation to move forward with them.
With that, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move to authorize Third Amendment to the Professional Services Agreement for Wastewater Regulatory Support Services, NPDES, to G&G Environmental Consultants Incorporated of Riverside, California, in an amount not to exceed $146,292 for the fiscal year 2019-20.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. And with that, item number 16, authorize staff to release a request for qualifications for design and build energy performance contracting services.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have before you a request for quotes for design build energy performance contracting services. In an effort to be more energy efficient, the city's looked into a couple different options and met with a couple different providers in regards to surveying our facilities, figuring out how we can be a little bit more energy efficient and move forward towards a greener city. Maybe doing some solar, harvesting our own energy sources, being able to charge for those energy sources, you name it. There's a lot of different entities out there that partner with cities and government bodies in regards to that. So you have an RFQ before you for review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But we'd just like to release it and see which companies are out there and see what we can do to, A, reduce our costs and then be a little bit more energy efficient moving forward and even make some money if we're able to stockpile any power in battery banks, if you will.
Okay, thank you. Public comment?
No requests.
Council questions? Good? Good.
No one else has any questions?
Well, I do, but.
Oh, good. No.
Go good, go first.
Maybe you'll ask and I won't have to ask.
My just question is, so this wasn't in the budget as far as what's going to come out of this. So if we go to RFQ and then we find qualifying consultants or firms, and then we go to RFP, you're looking at about, I'm assuming like a $40,000, $50,000 contract there. How is that looking within our budget? Because this is something that we didn't plan for that popped up, and I'm not sure if this is the timing for it or if we should wait until the budget comes back around so we can put it in there, only because of that big tag that's going to be coming up. So.
Well, if we have a proposal and there's a cost associated with that, we'll need to look at a budget adjustment, budget amendment, fund any fees associated with putting together our plan. So I think one of the key elements that we'll be looking at with the proposal would be what is the process that they're proposing. So is there an initial review and is there minimal to no cost to do that review? And then ultimately come back. You're going to need to develop a plan, and I think that's where your fees are really going to kick in. So today, with us launching into a new budget in July 1, which is completely balanced, if you were to assume this project today, what I'd probably do is recommend that we look to take a little bit out of your reserve fund to fund this project, because it is a one-time expense. It's not a recurring operational cost. But there would be additional costs associated with doing that, if there's fees associated at some point with this effort.
Oh, my only concern is we had just gone through that balanced budget, and we had had different departments have to cut back and so forth, and now we're going back and spending again when it wasn't in our original plan. So that's something fiscally we just want to think about, even though it's entirely needed. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is absolutely a necessity. I just don't know if the timing's right. But anyway, Mr. White, let's see what you have to say.
You took my question.
Oh, I did. Well, let's think of it.
The other idea is to identify some savings and
That's
try to
true.
utilize the incentives, identify grant opportunities, things like that. The goal would be to try to partner so that we minimize the out-of-pocket as much as possible.
I just didn't want to know how far we were going to go before we got a big price tag and then say, well, we're not ready for that. And then we did all this work and then we're not ready to go further.
It can't hurt.
That was my question.
So now the
Release it
question
and see
is,
what we get.
okay, so now the question is, council, where do we sit on that then? Is it, how far do we want to go? And, do we want to do the RFQ and then listen to what comes back? Or
Yeah, I moved to authorize staff to release the RFQ for design, build, energy performance contracting services.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes, okay. With that, that'll bring us to item number 17, authorize staff to release a request for proposals for employee benefits, insurance broker, and consulting services.
As we prepare for the renewal of medical insurance, we have a benefits subcommittee that's been created throughout the city with representatives from each of the various groups, and we've met and talked about some goals for this next year from each of the labor groups. And you have before you a request for proposals for qualified licensed brokers that can come in and bid our medical insurance, dental insurance, short-term disability, life insurance, all those standard benefits that are described in your MOUs. Brokers per se aren't paid directly by the city. They get a percent on the back end through the vendors, if you will, that they do business with. So currently, Kaiser or Cigna. That's how the fees work on the broker side of things. So no out-of-pocket for us. We'll just be looking at those percents and to make sure that our costs are minimized as a result of the broker's percent, if you will. That's how those work. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
All right, thank you. Public comment?
No requests.
I was going to say employee comment. Anyone here?
I just have a quick.
There's one of my committee members.
Go ahead, Mr. R.
I know the county is looking at going through PERS to get benefits and cost savings. Is that something that we can do also?
That is something that the benefits subcommittee is looking at. I've been to, I think, 2 seminars about their benefits and how that you can hop onto their medical and dental and what that does. Yes.
So-
I think we talked about it at the 11th hour during negotiations last year, but it is something the labor groups want to bring back.
Okay, so would this give us the opportunity to actually kind of compare?
Absolutely.
Give us a better
Yes.
idea of maybe where we can save the most money for?
Correct, and even if the labor groups and we all decided to go with CalPERS as a medical benefit option, we still need to provide short-term disability, life insurance, things like that, that maybe
Okay.
CalPERS doesn't. So you still have a need for broker services, just in a smaller capacity,
Thank you for that
perhaps.
clarification.
Thank you. Ms. Carroll, comment?
Just a quick one.
Yes, sir.
Is this our first time to do this on shopping for a broker or an option
Since,
out there?
yes, that I'm aware of. I don't know when the last time broker services were bid. I tried to go back through and look, and we can't find it. So it's been something that the labor groups and I have discussed the last few years. We just haven't gotten ahead of the game to do it soon enough before renewals were upon us. So we made an agreement with a couple of the labor groups that we would do it before this next fiscal year, just to ensure those percents. But prior to that, I can't find any record. I'm not sure when the last time it was bid.
Wow. So we have to do it every, probably, I don't know. Every
The
4
idea
years,
would be
5
every
years.
5 years. The idea, what we wrote in the RFP is that we'd be looking for that 3-year contract, because again, we want to, we can't put it out as 1 year because nobody's going to want to do business with us. So the idea was to put it out as a 3-year initial contract with 2 one-year renewals. As Christine mentioned, that seems to be the norm with most of our contracts these days that we've been trying to push towards to try to get some consistency.
Yeah, a couple of questions. Right now, we do not have health care through PERS, correct?
No.
Okay. And when you select a broker, are the employees given different options, like they can go with an HMO or PPO, or are you deciding that in your process? So in other words, if I wanted to do, like at my work, I can sign up for the PPO, or I can go with, just get the policy that allows me to go wherever I want to go that may not be a doctor in my PPO or HMO. Do the employees get choices from this broker?
From the broker, he comes back with options and quotes that we generally review at the end of the year, that the labor groups we meet and will confirm. We give dental options between an HMO and a PPO, but everything on the medical side has just been the HMO. We got rid of the PPO back in 2015 when everything happened. We only had one employee utilizing that. Isolating the number of plans that you offer has reduced our costs over the years.
But they'll go out and secure bids for whatever scope of coverage
That
that
we
we ask them
want.
to do.
Okay.
So if we want them to look at a HMO only or an HMO PPO option, we can do that.
Can you also ask them to look at a CDHC, which is?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because I think that has a lot of savings potential, and it can be designed in a way, written into the labor contract that puts the employee in the position of being able to use an HSA, health savings account, which they can roll over and carry from year to year, and then it puts them in a position to shop better, because that money they get to keep next year, and if the labor agreement has a provision where that deductible is part of their negotiation, it really puts the city in a much better place, and as well as the employees. So that CDHC is Consumer Determined Healthcare.
Yes.
I told you I was stuck in the airport. That's the book I read.
Oh, my goodness.
It was.
Well, you might have to share.
I
I'll
will.
read it.
It's released tomorrow.
Okay.
But I do.
Yeah.
You should look at it. It really.
Well, and then they have the high deductible plans. There's all these different types of options, and something the Benefits Subcommittee and I have been discussing is this like balancing whether you hire me and I'm a single employee and all I'm getting is my health care, but yet we have Lisa who she's getting a full family level plan. She's getting the full benefit of the cafeteria plan. So we have this disparate benefit because I'm not getting that full amount because I don't need it. I may one day. So we've talked about things like that too, and HSA is to help offset that. Or we've talked about going sole source because we are a small group. If we can get the labor units to agree to one healthcare plan as opposed to 2, we can drive up our bargaining power, if you will. We can drive down some costs. However, to an employee who absolutely is adamant that I do not want that healthcare plan, what options do they have to go out and purchase it somewhere else? So those high deductible options, just different things like that, and trying to make sure that it's fair.
There's been a couple examples, both private as well as local or state government, where originally everyone was hesitant to the high deductible, but the secured deductible.
Yes.
And I'm going to be careful because I'm not negotiating a contract here. But I think if the employees had their choice in state of Indiana, they originally offered a choice. In the first year, just I think it was 10-15% people took advantage of it. The second year, 80% jumped in. So if we had that option,
yes.
Again, it doesn't in my mind diminish our negotiations. It just gives them a different option.
You just give them more options.
Right.
Correct.
And
That's the goal.
the broker would be the one coming back with the numbers, though.
Correct.
Showing.
Once you've identified and signed on the dotted line that that's your official broker, then they can go out with all of your census data, all of your employees, their ages, their beneficiaries, how old their children are, what their medical statuses are, and they can begin those negotiations on our behalf.
And so that's going to be an RFP that comes back to us for approval.
Correct, for assignment,
So I will
absolutely.
be asking whether or not the broker does offer an HSA. program.
Absolutely. Got it.
That's all I had.
Anyone else? Good. Mr. Santos? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to authorize staff to release the RFP for employee benefits insurance broker and consulting services.
Second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. Okay, with that, we will be at item 18, approval of the city attorney invoices for the month of May 2019.
I'm recusing myself on this item, given that it involves my law firm.
Mr. Beaumont. Okay, Mr. Barton.
So, Council, if you'd like, I could break this down a little bit for you in terms of the invoice, because again, this is another high monthly invoice that you've seen. So I broke this down. There's basically 4 elements of this invoice. So we've got routine legal expenses, which are things like attending our meetings, helping us write ordinances, doing those standard legal consults. That's about $34,200 of this invoice, which is about 28% of these fees. Litigation is $43,300. So that's not the litigation including WRCOG or the other. That's other claims against the city or other defenses that we have, defending ourselves against various claims that are out there. We have about 46,000 of it, which is about 37%, which is reimbursable back to the city through either billings directly back to WRCOG for reimbursement for legal expenses that we have contributing towards the third-party claims, or in one case, we actually have a property lien that we're placing that once the property sells will be coming back to the city. Really, if you look at it, the routine expenses, the way we budget those is $500,000 for routine legal, about $250,000 through the year for any additional special litigation or defense where we have things filed against the city. So we're really within budget for the year as we move along with that. And really that kind of concludes a recap of what these legal expenses are for you tonight.
Great, thank you, Mr. Martin. Council, public comment?
No requests.
Great. Council comments?
Just comment.
Comment?
I really appreciate that, the breakdown of that. Thank you.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $124,110.29.
I'll second.
Councilmember White?
Yes.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Councilmember Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Santos?
Yes.
Mayor Martinez?
Yes. And with that, item number 19, legislative updates and discussion. Mr. Wersinski.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So I won't go into a bunch of details on this legislative report because the report contains some very detailed analysis of the budget that was passed on June 13th. So the legislators up in Sacramento got their act together and they passed the budget accordingly. I'll highlight a couple different items. Over $2 billion was allocated towards housing and homelessness. There's a creation and new investment within universal preschool and child care, a large increase in public school funding, additional education or additional funding to higher education, including additional funding to UC and Cal State schools, healthcare, safe and affordable drinking water only got $130 million. Natural resources, dealing with Prop 68 bond programs, and then public safety has a decent amount of funding as well. So the state has a lot of money to spend, and they're throwing it through different programs contained within this report, as you can read at your leisure. Another $2 billion under road maintenance and rehab account for local capital funding under SB1 projects. Skip over cap and trade, and then one thing I thought was interesting and of note is that the budget provides tens of millions of dollars for Census 2020 outreach to hopefully be able to get the most complete count possible for the state of California. And then one other one that I don't necessarily understand, so maybe one of you all can help me out, is $15 million for cannabis equity programs. So we're looking for fairness and equality for marijuana. There's a list of your upcoming funding activities, your legislative report, and then one thing that isn't in this report is that AB 392, so the deadly force legislation did pass the Senate Public Safety Committee today, and will go to its second reading on the Senate floor soon thereafter. So we'll report back when we get any idea of what's going to happen on the Senate floor with that bill. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Just on that note, Kyle, we have here as position of oppose on 392. Wasn't it revamped and then we took a neutral watch position?
Yeah, it was something that we officially sent in the letters of opposition and they reworded it. So Townsend is aware that we're in a neutral position. I can have them make that change within the legislative report, but they're not actively opposing the proposed legislation as it's drafted.
If you could, I'd just clarify. Council questions? Mr. White?
The $121 million that went to the fair, the clean water, actually came from cap and trade.
Yes.
So it was money that was supposed to be used for cap and trade for green. So our gas taxes
Greenhouse.
went to clean water. Okay. So let's get some more gas taxes.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Warsinski.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, that brings us to council reports. We'll go in order here. Ms. Carroll?
Since the last council meeting, I did go up to Sacramento for the Revenue and Taxation Policy Committee meeting for the California League of Cities. The positive part of that was that AB 147 was passed and gone into effect and signed by the governor, as is in the summary here by the Townsend report, and it went into effect on April 1st. There were two major items of discussion. One was AB 147. The other was a lot of discussion about how the money for homelessness was going to be applied. So I won't go into that because there was no direct answer on it. There were just general things at this point. But the AB 147, the ultimate end of that is that cities should be seeing an increase in the sales and use tax that is a byproduct of the South Dakota versus Wayfair decision and the Supreme Court ruling that then impacted the collection of sales tax in state for businesses that are out of state. And the example, of course, is Wayfair. So they don't know how much that will impact cities yet. They don't even have a real estimate of it as of yet. Since it wasn't collected before, they don't really have very discrete markers on how much it will impact cities. There has been anything from a range of 1.5% increase to 3.8% increase in what gets funneled to the cities, but it has definitely been summarized as a wait and see how the impact of that is. Now, one thing that's not in the Townsend report on AB 147 is that in October, there will be a marketplace that was the terminology that was used. I'll give an example that doesn't really directly apply, but Amazon, for instance, has many small sellers that would be selling into the state of California without having a physical presence in California. So in October, a portal, let's say, that has smaller sellers that are using that, whoever owns the portal, such as an Amazon, is going to be required to start collecting and keeping track of the sales that go through that portal and are shipped into a state. So the threshold is approximately $500,000 in sales in a calendar year, but that is not being put into effect until after October. So immediately, by the signing of it by the governor, there will be a collection of sales tax for companies such as the Wayfair, and the smaller impact will be for portal sellers to aggregate what the smaller sellers are doing, and that should funnel through to local cities. But we'll have to see how much that is. It was brought up again about the vehicle license fees for annexed areas that are inhabited by cities. As a reminder that there is potentially money on the table that can be claimed by cities where the state took the money for a period of time and now is releasing it back to the cities that were impacted. I've seen the list of cities, and I've shared the list of cities before. Beaumont was not impacted by a great amount. There were some cities like Fontana that may have had hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table that they could go pick up once the state decided to give back these vehicle license fees. But as I recall, Beaumont was just under $15,000, but it's still money on the table if we haven't followed through on that. That was a reminder at the meeting that we should make sure that we do pick up that money. And other than that, that was probably the most notable. Otherwise than that, there was a lot of discussion about what the budget meant, but nobody had any direct answers as of yet.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lara?
Yes. Thursday night last week, I went to the inaugural dive-in movie that they had at the pool. It was great to see the families that attended. There were quite a few, I think about 160 people altogether, roughly. I do want to thank Annie with AP Rentals. She spent all evening there making sure that the movie was running, did it on her own time. Also want to thank Pastor Mark with Impact Beaumont. They were serving hot dogs to the first 100. They ended up just feeding everybody that was there that showed up, which I thought was great. And Bamboo Ice was assisting the city with the fundraiser. They were there as well. But it was a great evening. I thought it was a great thing. I'd like to thank the staff for their efforts in putting that together. I think it's going to be great to see that this summer. Also like to thank Sergeant Macias for the great job. He's a great investigative work, and which led to an arrest that keeps our citizens safe. That's all I have here.
Ms. Santos?
Yeah. Last week, I attended the Philippine Independence Day and met, Consul General Cruz, and I presented to him the, proclamation and also certificate of recognition. And met a lot of dignitaries in there from LA and other cities, and they'll be really nice. I mean, working with them and talking to them, that they recognize Beaumont, where Beaumont is. So, I'm really, excited, representing the city of Beaumont in there. And then this one in here, so excited also. I mean, I got elected by as a SCOG recognition, regional council last week on the District 3 as a representative, and I was selected by our councils on this. So I'm really excited that to be in LA once a month, driving over there.
1 second.
And maybe you might be not aware, or you don't know what is this District 3. It consists of 5 cities in there. One is the Calamasa, Beaumont, Banning, San Jacinto, and Hemet. And so I'm happy about it. I will be representing the 5 cities, and I'll be proud of it. And I'll be reporting to you every month, every time I go in there. Again, thank you for the councils in here who voted for me. Thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. White?
How many votes did you get?
5.
Oh.
Shut up,
Mayor Daley.
Is it inappropriate to have him take us to tacos and beer after the fact?
Hey, why not?
All right.
looking for that.
Last week I went to the I-10 Economic Summit, first one, and it was outstanding. Kyle represented the city very well. It turned into a Banning bash, and I don't mean bash like party, but it's probably the most entertaining panel I've ever seen. You had two fairly disappointed consultants and developers, and you had Jeff Hewitt up there doing what he does best, and George Moyer was amazing the way he handled it, because they were just picking on Banning left and right, just because of all their processes and stuff. So I think I felt a little uncomfortable, and Kyle and I were in the back, sort of a little bit uncomfortable. I went to Erica. In Erica, we had decided a while back that we were going to cut off our communications from the press. All has to do with what laws we're following and encrypted. And we had decided this last year, but there was a change in council, or in the members on the commission, and so a couple wanted to revisit it. We voted to leave things alone, and it was a 3-2 vote to just leave things alone. But Palm Springs had come up with an interesting solution that they're going to put in a beta format, which is they now will have an online service that you can go and click on, and you will see real live time, probably delayed 10-15 minutes of calls as they come through. So that'll be open to the press. Carrie, I think it was to the public as well, right?
Currently, they were just going to roll it out to just the press, because they were trying to lock it down per IP address.
Okay.
They did send me the link to share with the board for a few of us others to look
Okay.
into it as well. But eventually, the idea would be that it could go public on their live feed page, but I don't think they were there yet.
Okay, so if we could get that link, I think you'd find it's pretty interesting. I also went to League of Cities Transportation, Communication, and Public Safety Policy Committee. And the most important thing that came out of there is there's a lot of grant money that's available for people who are starting or in the process of their general plan to pay for your general plan. So, and I talked to city manager, and they're already on top of that. And then finally, I went to Pass Communications, PassCom, and there was a presentation there by the city of Temecula regarding their Emergency Operations Center. An EOC is nothing, we don't have anything like that in the past. We meaning the city of Beaumont, was taking a lot of grief, or I guess I was taking a lot of grief, because we used to have something like that. And there were there's some history as to why we don't, which I won't go into, but I assured them that I would bring it up to council as a future agenda item, so I'm giving you a little bit of a feedback on that. But City of Temecula is more than happy to come out and do a workshop presentation for us. but it's something that we definitely need. You know, if there's an emergency, we need to have all of that coordinated. So I think it's very important that we at least look into that and put that on as a future agenda item. And that's all I had.
Thank you. Not too much for me. I did attend the League of City Environmental Committee, Policy Committee, and I'll have more of a report on that next meeting. But a lot of our discussion centered around the use of single-use plastics and how we can go about doing more on our part and what we can do as an environment and then versus industry. So I'll bring back some more specifics on that. And congratulations for your skating.
Thank you for your vote.
You put it over the top.
Yeah, well, and thank you for SCAG for allowing that teleconferencing. That really helped. I was in Sacramento at the time, but I really wanted to be here, so that was very reasonable on their part.
How much did the second place have?
4.
Just saying.
Just saying.
There were 2 4s.
Yeah, there were 2 4s, yeah. So not that I was deciding vote, but anyway. All right.
Bringing it home.
With that, economic development update, Mr. Wasinski again.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Staff and the city's consultant for the Economic Development Strategic Plan presented that draft review platform at the last EDC meeting, so we talked about that in detail, and then I've asked the Economic Development Committee members to review that, as well as the specific action plan items that they're called out for, to see if they're interested in that or get their minds kind of wrapped around what is contained within that report. So I know they'll be looking at that, and we expect hopefully some feedback prior to us bringing back that report to City Council at the next meeting for adoption. One other thing that the city manager wanted me to touch on is one of those 64 council goals that you guys put up on the board during the budgeting process. One of them was the foreign trade zone concept, and Councilmember Carroll has been working with me on working with the city of Palm Springs to address what needs to be done in order to extend that trade zone to the pass area. And we've made some progress. I can't go into all the details tonight because it's not on the agenda, but we are making progress with the 3 local businesses within Beaumont today, and we've asked them to go through an analysis process to hopefully present facts, actual empirical data, to the Department of Customs on what the savings could be potentially for the Beaumont businesses. Because one of the things that was discussed when they were reviewing the expansion was, why does it matter? No one's going to benefit from it anyway. So we took that as a challenge and reached out to our businesses to provide City of Palm Springs, their consultant for the foreign trade zone, and the Department of Customs some actual data on exactly who would benefit from the program. So that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you.
Question?
Right. City Treasurer.
No actual report, but I have an interesting comment. I hear the state passed a budget for $2 billion for homeless people, but also was reading yesterday or today that one of the Silicon Valley companies donated, is going to contribute $1 billion for affordable housing in San Francisco. So all I could say is maybe our development plan, at some point, we could hit one of those big, big spenders anyway, that could help the community.
Is that a couple of houses in San Francisco?
It's a lot more with $1 billion.
It's a condo.
Condo.
It's one.
That was
floating
Google,
slabs
but
out
they're
of the
gonna
bay.
make their own money anyway.
Of course. Thank you. City Clerk?
Yeah, thanks to Nicole, and you'll hear me say that a lot from now on. We're now going to have a regular monthly status report on public records requests, and this will be included in her written report, I guess is what, bi-weekly that you send to them? But anyway, for the month of May, we had 5 requests and 5 completed requests. Total staff time was 4.5 hours. In addition, we had an extended time required public records requests. There were 2 of them from the same individual. They involve CFD bank statements. They was originally received on March 14th. It was completed June 6th. It took 48 hours of staff time with an estimated taxpayer cost of $4,060.44. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. City Attorney?
Nothing this evening.
City Manager? Ah, yes.
Just what everybody's been waiting for. So I just want to confirm with our Honorable SCAG representative that we do have Beaumont 1 ready to deliver you into LA. It's otherwise known as the PD drone. So it is, we did upsize that so we can just drop you in and bring you in. So.
You could have a drone.
We should have just taken that van that we just sold to the.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I don't know why you brought that up, because that was a really rough agenda item for us.
Oh, good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
If we didn't bark up the price on that.
Oh, jeez.
Well, we scratched around and finally found somebody to take it.
Must I end this now?
Rope.
Oh, shoot.
Just rein it in, that's all.
So tomorrow morning, I'm going to go out for the 2nd year in a row. There's the Southwest Riverside County Association of Realtors has a city manager breakfast, and so we all go out there and we talk about how wonderful our cities are, and let the realtors know that they've got a great place to sell property.
There you go.
So looking forward to that. It's over in Hemet, so it gets going at 8 o'clock in the morning. So if you got nothing else to do, head on out to Hemet, Florida Avenue at their offices down there. One of the things that we had intended to have for you tonight was an update on our cell tower work that we're working on. So we're going to take the opportunity to go back and restructure, and we're kind of adding some additional details to what you would have otherwise had as your staff report. So you'll be receiving kind of a status on that, and then it will be on the agenda for discussion and direction, at your next meeting, your first meeting in July. So I apologize, that was totally my fault on not getting that to you. Have y'all ever heard about a project we're working on Oak Valley Parkway? We've got some lights going on out there. Well, we are actually working on that. So SoCal Edison is still scheduled to be out there on the 19th and the 20th to be energizing the north and south side of the bridge. Then, starting on the 20th, we are scheduled to start the grinding, which is the prep work for the lay down of the new asphalt that's out there. And then we are scheduled to have paving laid down on the 25th. So there'll be some public information going out, but the ramps and the bridge will actually be closed for those improvements from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. on the 20th and the 25th.
Of which month?
June?
Of June of 2019.
36.
2019. Exactly. And if we don't get there, it's Ashley's fault.
Two closing dates, 20th and
The 20th and the 25th.
Can we,
All day?
From 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
can we put up a dunk tank for the city manager?
Sure,
We could
absolutely.
raise some money for some of that bridge work.
We could actually have.
long line,
There is a really long line.
Oh, man.
Wow. It is.
Golly. So, one of the issues that's out there is our website. We're in the process of restructuring, so it doesn't necessarily look any different right now, but we're getting it set up because we are organizing and structuring your brand new website. So all the information that we had is still there, but we're restructuring it and the architecture so it will overlay into the new website that we're looking to try to get developed and implemented here in the next couple of months. So, so that will conclude your city manager report for tonight.
Okay. Future agenda items.
Yes, Mayor, I have one.
Okay, Mr. White.
The Emergency Operations Center, I also want to be clear that at this meeting, there were representatives from the city of Calamasa, the city of Banning, the hospital, and the county, who all would work on a project like this coordinated together. But I think it's something that we really, and I'll get you the information to who to reach out to in Temecula.
And one thing I will mention too is that the 8th Street building that we're in the renovation process for, part of that renovation is to create an EOC in that building over there as well. So it'll have some functionality of an EOC. It's not to the level of what you're talking about here, but we'll have our place and our structure ready to go.
But what you'll find in the presentation is that Temecula just started with a room. And they just, they also, it takes staff. So they had one person dedicated to bringing it along. So I think that's the story that we need to hear, is that we don't have to go with full staff and, full equipment. You can work our way up to a place.
We're starting with a wagon and a desk.
Yeah, there you go. It'll work.
All right, cool. Right.
Thank you. Any others? All right, seeing none, then we are ready for adjournment. 8:02.